Madam President, to begin, may I congratulate you on your election as President and also the Honourable Simon O'Brien on his election as Deputy President. I'd also like to honour the Whadjuk people from the Noongar Nation and offer my respects to Elders both past and present. I also want to congratulate my fellow Pauline Hanson's One Nation Legislative Council members, Charles Smith to my left and Robin Scott to my right, together with all other members who have been elected and re-elected to this Legislative Council, including my crossbench colleagues. Having been chosen by the people by the South West region to be their voice in Western Australian Parliament, I rise before you with a mixture of pride and honour. This is truly a humbling experience. I also want to acknowledge and thank close to 180,000 people throughout Western Australia who voted for Pauline Hanson's One Nation in this recent election, and inform them that all One Nation Legislative Council members are here to work for the people of WA and not the current establishment. We will not buckle to political correctness or from responsibilities to the majority of West Australians, and we will not recoil from the tasks at hand, regardless of the criticism hurled at us from lobby groups from the powerful left minorities. Urgent change is needed, and we will stand up and represent those forgotten West Australians. We will research and inform ourselves of all the relevant and important issues, and then debate each piece of legislation before us before making a decision. So I say to the people who elected us strongly and bravely to this new Parliament, that is our promise. As a proud and slightly parochial West Australian, I want to tell you a little bit about my background so members know who I am, the values I hold and what I stand for. I was an 18-month-old baby when my parents, sisters and brother arrived in Fremantle in June 1955. Dad was a very determined carpenter and a great handyman, and he went door knocking to find work. So as a child, growing up, I didn't see my dad all that much as he was always working. But he did instil in me a very strong work ethic and family values, and that I still hold to this day. Mum found work as a nurse, and within 2 years, my mother and father had bought their first home in Claremont. Now that's a fair task for a young couple with 4 children to feed and clothe, with less than £300 in those days in their hand. When they arrived in West Australia 2 years earlier and with no real job prospects. Those early days of growing up were free and easy, and as a child I learnt respect and dignity of work after witnessing my parents deal with life's ups and downs and misfortunes and successes. It taught me to strive hard and persist and to never give up. When people have a job, they tend to be not only happier but healthier. And what I see is that they are better prepared to handle the life's challenges. They realise that this great life comprises a series of calculated risks, where you succeed in most, but rarely in all. That has been the amazing story of my life. My vague earliest memories of living in Perth were growing up in 2 tough migrant camps in Redcliffe and Greylands, and apparently I was a bit of a rebel in those days. After moving to Claremont, I attended the Claremont Primary School, where I was an average student, but fortunately, I should say, I excelled in sports and was almost good at most things. I made many great friends, including an Aboriginal boy called Jimmy Yarran from Bruce Rock and the Narrabeen area of country WA. He told me about the great Aboriginal footballers who came from that region, and this is where my love of Aussie rules came from. All I wanted to do was play league football for Claremont and nothing else, other than learn more about the Aboriginal brothers and sisters who were mainly unseen in the suburbs of Perth when I was growing up in the early 60s. I attended the Swanbourne High School, where things started to really click for me, and I remember fondly volunteering on weekends to do extra studies with my maths and English teachers, thankfully to this day. My great love of history and geography was my driving force at school, and to this day it has never waned. During my time at high school, my parents had moved the family home to Woodlands, and I remember the Claremont Football Club quickly signing me up and playing me in an under-19s game. I was only 15 at the time, and they did that so I wouldn't be picked up by Subi because of the address change. It was about time where my mum and I returned to England for an extended holiday via a ship cruise. For a young boy of 15 who loved history and geography, travelling through many capital cities in Australia and New Zealand, Tahiti, Mexico, Panama, South America and the West Indies, and then returning 9 months later through Holland, Portugal, Senegal, South Africa. It was an incredible eye-opener to see the rest of the world. That was where I learnt about different cultures, languages and customs, and it taught me great tolerance and patience. Considering the political problems that existed around the world at the time, I started to really appreciate how lucky we were living in Western Australia and the values we cherished as a society, and I still hold that fiercely today. On my return to Perth, I gained a position as a copy boy, where I worked closely with journalism fraternity in the advertising department of the West Australian newspapers. From here I gained an apprenticeship in photo engraving while attending the Perth Technical College and achieving a diploma in graphic arts before becoming a printer by trade. It was during that time that I made my debut as a league player for Claremont in May 1974, a long-held dream of mine at the age of 19. However, after 8 years as being a printer, being a people person and a communicator that I am, I realised that this kind of work wasn't for me. So I travelled to Europe, as they did in the 70s, and the UK, and I worked my way around many countries before returning to WA and going back to the West Australian as an advertising executive. This opened up a whole new world to me. During these years, I was also lucky to have played with some great sporting clubs and luckily winning many premierships in both football and cricket. And I was fortunate enough to have witnessed and played with and against many WA and Australian greats. Once again, I learnt that if you really want to achieve long-term dreams, never let anyone put you down or discourage you. And if you work hard, you can achieve your aims and dreams with the support of great mentors and family. Eventually, I decided it was time for me to get out of my comfort zone, to lead and not just follow anymore. So I took on a new challenge as a coach in a WA amateur footy club. Such was my burning ambition to win a premiership as a coach. I achieved this in 1980, and later I captained the WA state side and led them to their first ever victory against the Big V in their first ever national championship win against the Big V. After highs and lows of my football career, I went through a difficult phase in my life following the death of my mother. It was a very tough time for me, as my mum had always been the major inspiration to me in my life. Family and close friends helped me recover and get my life back on track, and I've never forgotten those great family values that my mum taught me. I'm married to the most amazing woman I've ever met. I have 4 adult children and 4 grandchildren, and some of them are here today. It hasn't always been easy to keep everyone on track, including myself. But my children have a wonderful balance in life between family and work and self-belief that if you want to achieve your aims and dreams in life, you can do it. It's up to you. My children and their families have become integral components of Australian society, And it all started from those lessons learnt and the examples they adopted from their grandparents all those years ago. A core belief of mine that some West Australians and Australians have forgotten is the essential value of personal responsibility. And unfortunately, they haven't been assisted in this regard to some recent government policies in this area, both federally and in the state of WA. My 18-year career in media as a sales executive or a manager was very exciting at times, and it can, you can get carried away. I remember it being very daunting one day when, giving about an hour's notice, I was asked to host Paul McCartney and Bob Geldof to lunch. But that's the media for you. It's exciting and scary at times. It's where I also learned that if you show real interest in people's current and long-term issues and have patience and respect, those people would one day return the favour to you. I may have been just working for a certain newspaper or a certain radio station at the time, but that didn't really matter much to my clients. What mattered most to them was me, as they had come to trust me and all their advertising needs and even their TV and other promotional events. I was virtually acting as an advertising agent even though I was representing the West Australian. It was evidence of another life's great lessons. Always be kind, genuine and honest, and demonstrate genuine integrity, regardless of whoever you are in contact with. Now, my 2 stints in radio, working for radio stations in Bunbury and Mandurah at a senior level, were also great learning curves for me, because previous to that I'd always lived in the city. However, local media in the southwest of this state is so vital to farmers, small businesses and to the people living in big regional towns. I eventually opened up my own promotional and marketing company, and to my surprise, that decision drew me towards a different direction, and one that I hadn't anticipated. Firstly, it took me to the central desert regions of Australia, where I worked and lived with remote Aboriginal Nunadara people in 11 small communities, in my role coordinating and delivering sports, recreational activities and health programs. Secondly, and following this and other work I had done for the football industry in WA, I was asked by the AFL to become their first ever Chief Executive Officer of New Zealand AFL, based in Auckland. This was an amazing experience for my family and me, living and working in the birthplace of my wife and being involved in watching the AFL grow internationally. It was a bit of a passion of mine at the time. Unfortunately, my eldest son, who is now here today, and he's very healthy, he wasn't those days. So I feel for the previous member who spoke. Became very ill, and we decided to return to Australia in haste. This was a particularly hard time for the family, but thankfully to my wife Sandra, she got everyone through a very tough period. Not really knowing what to do with myself, I rang a friend who had previously organised me to do some work in the desert. And he asked me to come up and work with him as a community relations person, training and employing Māori people from the Western Desert to work in a remote gold mine in the Pilbara. Many of those Māori people had remembered the work that I'd done previously in the Central Desert, because those people are related in so many ways. This was a very rewarding time, and the work was amazing. Seeing these Aboriginal training and employment programs developed from scratch with very little support at the time, and now to see these and other programs just like it emerge all over the Pilbara, employing thousands of Indigenous people, is enormous credit to everyone involved in those days. The wonderful assistance and mentoring I received from Māori elders from these remote communities has completely transformed me and my life, and my family's life, always for the better. Until entering this Parliament, this has been the career I have pursued since the early opportunities presented to me. More recently, I have been working in communities, negotiating agreements with remote Indigenous people in the Eastern Pilbara and the Northern Goldfields. I've learnt that the world's greatest commodity is its people. Now that's something we really need to concentrate on. So many of our governments' failed policies recognise the importance of the economy, the environment and other factors, but they fall way, way short when considering the short-term and long-term effects on their own people, our number one commodity. Australia has, unfortunately, shipped off most of its manufacturing and industry jobs to other countries, while allowing our agricultural and forestry and tourism industries to also suffer. That has had a detrimental effect upon millions of Australians. Pauline Hanson's One Nation WA calls for the major structural change in a way our governments negotiate with big business and big unions by putting the needs of the majority of West Australians first and foremost, not the out-of-touch fringe minorities, as is so often the case. The southwest of this great state is where my main focus will be, and I have been given the responsibility as their representative. So, to that end, I point out the following. There is so much to be done. The southwest currently has a major crime and drug problem. The problem is not helped by the dearth of diligent health professionals and police officers in the region. Many people have lost their jobs and homes, including the fly-in and fly-out workers in Bunbury and Busselton regions, and there are family breakdowns and the emergence of a major social problem, especially in the big regional centres. Many small businesses and farmers are struggling with their new long-term plans, and they are not getting the support they need from the state and local government departments, with endless green and red tape slowing them down and, in some cases, stopping any economic progress whatsoever. Tourism has slowed in towns like Denmark and Walpole, and they're not moving ahead as before. And business conditions are difficult. A major coal mining collie is under receivership, and plans for the future are far from clear. There should be also a WA regional fire brigade based in the southwest. This is vital to the security and peace of mind of those people. There are major infrastructure problems, with many roads in the agricultural and southwest forest regions that are just unsafe for locals and tourists alike. The South Coast Highway between Albany and Esperance carries big trucks and freight that should be on rail, causing major road damage and, in some cases, death by tragic accidents that could have been avoided with better planning. With the support of the people of the southwest, I'm proud to say, as their elected representative and Pauline Hanson's One Nation state leader, we have plans to help alleviate and fix these problems for a well-thought-out and long-term sustainable future for the southwest. However, in most cases, we will be seeking either government or bipartisan support to achieve these goals. The southwest is a major economic powerhouse in this state's economy, and the local home-run businesses have been the cornerstone of our society in the bush. These need to be protected. In the early 2000s, mining, together with forestry, agriculture, tourism, were booming, as were Bunbury and Albany ports. On most fronts, activity has now slowed, and young people aged between 16 and 24 are leaving the city in large numbers. Leaving for the city in large numbers. That needs to change if the southwest is to grow and prosper in the future. As a state, we can turn this around, but we need absolute cooperation, determination to negotiate in good faith and win back the support of the people of the great southwest of WA. The challenge is there for all of us. Finally, I want to especially thank Pauline Hanson and James Ashby, both who came to see my colleagues and I sworn in Parliament on Monday, with other colleagues from federal Senators Brian Burston and WA's very own Peter Giorgio. Pauline and the party showed confidence in me to lead the party here in WA and gave me an opportunity to represent the people of the southwest region. I will always be grateful for that wonderful opportunity. I personally have learned a great deal from Pauline and James in a very short time and have received great encouragement from them to represent WA, first and foremost, always. I also thank all the WA candidates and supporters who have helped Pauline Hanson's One Nation become a force to be reckoned with here in WA, and thank them for their dedication, hard work and loyalty during the past 6 months. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was married to the most amazing woman I've ever met, and it is now time to thank her and my incredible children, who are also here today. I want to thank them for the love and support they have given me, not only during my wonderful, amazing life, but especially during the past 6 months of 18 to 20-hour days, sleepless nights, stress, anxiety, etc., you name it. I don't enjoy elections that much. It's not just by chance that my life has turned for the better since I met the love of my life, my wife Sandra. Her love, courage, strength, honesty, tolerance and most of all, her selflessness have guided my family and me to great heights, and I honour them all. Our state in West Australia is ready for positive change, where freedom of speech and courage in the face of adversity is admired because of the benefits it can bring to society. We are facing great challenges of a kind that this state has faced before and overcome. And I will do whatever needs to be done in this place to help overcome the challenges that await us. Madam President, Council members, I thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to get a vote. Thank you. Here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Look forward to you. Thank you. Thanks very much.